right. Super excited about this meeting with Jo Mangum on the show. 30 years in the business, coaching agents, teaching Bex all across North Carolina and beyond. And today we are going to be talking about pricing listings and communicating with
Mm.
your clients and potential clients.
Big variety.
This is
Yeah.
where the money is, right? This is where the money's made.
It is. It's so funny. We work so hard to get a listing, and then we drop the ball with the pricing, and then all that work and all that money and all that frustration and all that pain is for nothing because it doesn't sell and they're gonna give it to somebody else.
But Joe, I wasn't going to get the listing if I didn't price it at their price.
Oh, isn't that a good one? And so that is the number one problem. We think that we compete on the price. The higher the price, they're going to pick us. And that's an education problem with your seller. You're not educating them that that's not the way it works, that it is the market and we're an interpreter of the market. And then our job is to give you the information you need to make good decisions.
That's right.
Because at the end of the day, the price is the biggest decision a seller is going to make.
That's right.
And if they wisely, they're losing net from their pocket. And I have found that saying things just like that are critical. The price is the most important decision you're going to make, and you make it poorly, you're losing money at the end of the day. And so that's your job is first to understand the skill of how to hold the pricing conversation and be able to educate them on the price before they get there, and so they
But
can make a good decision.
Joe, I have a corner lot. I got one of the biggest lots in the neighborhood.
Great.
I
I'm
I
so
could,
glad it's beautiful,
this location, isn't it?
and it's a beautiful lot, and there are pros and cons to having a corner lot. Each one of those that we're gonna discuss when we get into the pricing conversation. Don't bite is my point. Don't bite on every objection they tell you. And better yet, know the objections that over and over. We rarely get new objections and have that prepared to say even before they get there. Like, for example, what's the number one thing that we hear? Can we talk about price first? Right? Would you agree with that, Joe?
Yeah.
They wanna know the price first, right? That's what they want to know. And so if you will prepare yourself and have your scripts ready or your talk tracks ready. I hate to say scripts because people kinda their head twitches when you use the script word, but to have those talk tracks and you can say to them, "Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I have a process that here's the second thing we're gonna talk about, and pricing is gonna be the third thing that we talk about." And like you, if I'm sitting there in your chair, I'm gonna be thinking, "Well, can't we talk about price first?" But my job is to help you make good decisions. And for you to be in a position to make the best decision about price for your family, knowing this information first will put you in that position. So with your permission, we're going to talk about these things before we get to price.
So there's always a fundamental issue with pricing. I think it was our conversation a while ago when you had mentioned that appraisers are pricing on history, and it's
They're the story.
to predict the future, right?
Appraisers are historians, real estate agents are fortune tellers.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I love that. And it's so true. We had such a stark lesson in 2020, 2021, where we couldn't, the market was going up faster than we could. So agents smartly kept pushing the price up, and then the market kept paying it.
Right.
And lo and behold, it was the market that set the actual price,
The market always sets the actual price.
right? So now
Right.
in other markets, it's going the other way. And that is such a difficult conversation to have. The same methodology of being under what the market is willing to pay should be the same in any market to get that bump up and to get multiple eyes on it and potentially multiple offers in any
Mhm.
market. That's a tough.
It takes first off, it takes a seller there's a gap between what the market is doing and what the seller thinks the market is doing. So they have in their head, "Oh, the market is this," but the market moves faster than their thought process. And I think that the very first thing that has to happen is not rely solely on the comparative market analysis or the CMA.
That's right.
That's number 1. And I also would encourage your listeners not to rely on a computer generated CMA only, because if you do not understand the CMA, you'll never be able to defend the CMA. So that's number 1. CMA, critically important. It is the cornerstone to pricing conversation, but it's not enough. So there's 3 other things that you need to know what the absorption rate is of the market for this price range. How fast are they selling? An absorption rate gives you that. If you don't know how to calculate an absorption rate, please go Google it or go find out somewhere, because that basically tells you how fast that type of house is selling in the market. And I have seen absorption rates of 72 months. I
Yeah.
have seen all of those ranges. So understand how to calculate that. The next thing that you need to understand is the competition, period, their competition. So if I'm a buyer and I'm a buyer that will look at their house, what other houses would I be looking at? These are ones that are currently on the market. To remember that buying a house fundamentally is like buying a pair of shoes. You're going to go in, you're going to look at them, you're going to put them on your feet, you're going to compare them, and you're going to make a decision based on that
Right.
comparison. So never, ever forget the competition. And then lastly, the big question I think is, what's their motivation? And, I've taught strategic pricing specialists for many years, and almost always I have somebody come up at a break and say to me, "So I've got a house." I'll say, "Okay. And it's priced perfectly. So what's the problem?" "Well, it's just sitting." "Okay. What's the motivation of the seller?" And almost always they'll say, "Well, here's the thing." I go, "Aha, there, there it is. Here's the," when
That
they say that. And first off, they think it's priced perfectly based on the CMA. Again, we've just established the CMA is only one of the pieces of setting a price. And then secondly, if if the seller is not motivated, then we already have a problem. We just have a problem. And that's the
if the
biggest one.
seller's like, "Oh, if I get X, I'll sell it." Well, no,
No,
that's
I said to somebody yesterday who called me, and she's a neighbor, I know her, and she said, "Hey, you know what? We're selling our house and we're selling it for X amount." And yesterday when I said it out loud, I thought I saw your face change. So do you think it's the right price? And I said, "Look, I don't have anything to do with price. Market has everything to do with the price, but I'm happy to ask you some questions." And I started asking her some questions. And then she said the sentence that many sellers say, "But I need
yeah,
560." And I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. If you were out buying a house and we were going around to houses and you saw a house that was great, but you thought it was a little bit high. And I said to you, well, they need it. Would you pay it?" And she said, "Well, that wouldn't make any difference to me." I said, "Exactly."
right.
So the need thing. So the motivation, I've always found that these 2 questions are, and they have to be asked in this order, Joe. Okay. These 2.
Take notes.
If you ask the seller, what will happen if the house sells very quickly, i.e., are they gonna say, "Well, I'll move in with mama," or are they gonna say, "Ooh, that would be a problem and we would have to pass by that one?" And then the second question, followed by the second question, what happens if it doesn't sell? And if you hear something like, "Well, we'll put it on next year," or "That's fine," you're in deep trouble.
Yeah, yeah, you are. Walk out. No,
Yeah, so you gotta have those 4 things in a price. Bottom
yeah,
line here is that when you went to real estate school, you were taught to do the CMA, and it was generally in that atmosphere a math problem, and you have to be great at pricing. You gotta be great at the CMA, you gotta be great at understanding absorptions, great at getting to their motivation, and great at understanding the competition, and that's how you become a really good pricer. And under that circumstance, you will be able to talk through pricing with people. and you will no longer be at the mercy of putting the house higher than the other agent because you're doing things that are so different from any other agent that you will stand out as someone who is knowledgeable and competent at price.
Let's talk about before we go on to because communication is tied heavily into this, and that's a huge topic for me, and that's why I wanted you on the show because I went to a
Yeah.
communication class, and I was jumping out of my seat. I wanted to jump in on the conversation then. What are the resources that they have that they can truly understand the market? I know you said absorption rate. Is it driving around the town? Is it knowing what's going on in the news? Is it all in the MLS? What do they need to do to get the best price point?
Well, I think there's several things. I think the first one is we get lots of things from our boards about what's happening in market, and you need to understand that. Don't just let that pass in your email. When you get that email that says, here's the stats of the market, pay attention to that. Number two, I really hope that every real estate agent the first thing they do when their feet hit the floor in the morning is that they look at the hot sheet
Yeah.
and they see what has come on, what is going off, what has expired, what has had price reductions. And you will learn and accumulate a lot of knowledge from doing that. And so those things. All right. But then after that, back to your original questions about communication after that, I find it really interesting that this profession, and it's a profession where people come to it for freedom,
Yeah.
seem to think that you don't need any structure or systems in order to have freedom, when actually your freedom is in structure. And the reason I'm saying that with pricing and with communication is that you have to be in the leader and how you're going to present this information and the communication of this information. And you need to have a structure that you lay information out to them. This is not variable. This is something that works and something that you do each time the same way. And being a thought leader in how you communicate to your seller about their price and letting them know, setting up expectations about how you're going to communicate. So saying to them up front, this is how we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this.
So
Are you
I
okay?
I like jump in on this. So there are some agents that will send a lot of this information up front. So by the time they get to the consumer is educated, they understand, they've looked at the
When
market.
they look at
Yeah, assuming they looked at it. And there are ways to make sure they do. And then there's also when you show up, are you a fan of presentations or conversations and just guiding them? Consultation, we call it.
okay. So I'm a fan of a conversation that's structured, right?
Right.
We're just not gonna talk. I have a methodology of what we're gonna talk about, but it is a conversation. Here's the thing I know for sure. And, first off, let me just stop and say, we're taught how to do listing presentations all the time. And nobody ever teaches us how to do pricing presentations.
True.
It's one of the big flaws in the real estate education system. That's the first thing. But I believe in having a conversation with them. And more importantly, I believe in them being involved in the process. Typically, agents will come in and tell them what the market says and tell them what the price is going to be, what the range is going to be. And so there's nothing for them to do but to reject and push from it. But if you make them part of it and say, okay, let me show you, here are the pieces of information we're going to look at now and gather them around. Don't be across the table from them and gather them around and say, okay, let's look at this one. Let me tell you what this one is going to tell us. Now, see that number right there? That number is important to us. Hey, look at that. Do you see how that's happening? And do you see why that's like that? Do you see that? And making sure they understand each piece before I go to the next piece. So it's a guided conversation to make sure they get all the pieces they need to make
Yeah.
those informed decisions.
Now, I was back when I was practicing heavily. I had the PowerPoint, I had the online stuff going on in front of them, razzle dazzle, because all that stuff was new at the time. I hate to say.
Yeah, we bulked up.
Yeah, yeah. Effective? Do you want agents going in with all kinds of stuff to show?
I want agents going in with the stuff they need to show it in a conversation. So I am not going to be a person who has what I call the flip. Flip, yeah, and go through it, and that way they are going to die 1,000 deaths in
Yeah,
that presentation, right? But I do want to have all of this at my fingertips. So when they say, so and so's house sold for so and so, I look at all the houses in their neighborhood that have sold, and I bring that in with me, and I take everything that they have seen on online estimators, and I bring those with me, and so I can say, "Yeah, I've got that right here," and I will pull that out and go, "Okay, this is what the online estimators have said. That's what that has said, and let's ask the question about how is this gonna compare?" Or tax record. Well, my tax value is pull the tax value out and make sure to bring out other houses that have sold in the neighborhood and say, okay, their tax value was so and so and it sold for so and so, and that difference was this percent. To go ahead and have pieces of paper, not just your voice, but have your voice and the evidence of it that you can show. Does that
yeah,
make sense?
it does. Yeah. Let's talk about making this conversational because that was one of the fun things about you getting into. And some of the fundamentals of sales, as most sales agents are taught in the beginning, or what they hear, is that they should be talking a lot and telling, right? So,
Drives me
so let's dive into that and how to actually engage your prospect, consumer, whatever you want to call them, to make sure that you're getting across to them.
We want to talk because we want to prove we have value. We are compelled to have all of this information come out. And by the way, we all think it's brilliant. We just think it's
Oh yeah,
brilliant. It's not really. By the way, it's just not all that brilliant. I think there's a couple of fundamentals to discuss. Fundamental number one is you have to warm up the room. You have to do things to chat and have that icebreaker information, that exchange of information. So if I'm going to somebody's house to do a listing presentation, one of the first things I'm going to know is I'm going to get there a little bit early, drive around the neighborhood, look around at it, look at their house, note things about their house. And so I'm going to start with things like, hey, who's got the green thumb? The yard looks amazing. You're going to start having that chat. When you walk into their house, everything you need to know about them are on the walls. Hey, you're a Carolina fan, huh? You're going to have that kind of conversation to warm it up.
yeah,
I think the next phase of communicating with someone is transitioning to some questions that help you to get really focused on what they want to talk about. And Joe, you and I've talked about this before, but this idea of sitting down at the kitchen table with the seller and saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what is it that you want to accomplish in our time together? What would be your ideal outcome of our meeting? And instead of just assuming you know what it is,
sure. Well, yeah,
yeah, but then as soon as you ask a question like that
okay,
and wait for the answer because they're taking a little bit off, they're like, oh, she's asking us a question. I go, well, gee, I don't know. What do you think? Well, what do you think? And then they start telling you. And usually it's things like, well, I want to know how long it's going to take my house to sell. And I want to know what you'll do for us in this process. So are the typical answers you get. Now, let me stop and say most agents just come in and start talking
yes,
instead of asking those questions. And those questions are so important. I have asked that question before, and somebody has said, I want to list my house with you. I'm like, okay. I
yeah.
don't have to do all these.
Press hard, 3 copies.
Right. That's exactly right. And if I had not asked that question, I would have spent an hour telling them things that they didn't care about. In fact, I may have taught them out of
Yeah,
using my
right,
services.
right.
Right?
If you don't know
And
what they want, how do you know what to
you
talk about and what to present?
yeah. And so just by asking that question and falling quiet, I find it's important to write it down, as they say, each one of them for a couple of reasons. I think that it's respectful that what they're saying is important and I'm writing it down. Secondly, if they give me 3, I'll remember. If they give me 4, I will not remember all 4. So I think it's important
Right.
to me to
I
write
can't
all of them.
remember what you just said, so there's no way I'm gonna remember 4 things.
Never. I'm never gonna remember all 4. It's like I might not remember 3 depending on the day. So I think that is respectful, and then it gives me an opportunity to say to them, "Okay, I just wanna make sure I've heard this right. Here are the things that you want to know, this, and this. Am I correct?" To get acknowledgement that, yes, we all agree on where we're focusing in this conversation. And if agents just did that, just ask a question like that, it will
And
change a lot for them.
and the 2 things that you silence and then writing it down also helps them truly listen to what the person's saying and not just be thinking about what the next line is gonna be because they have to
Yeah.
actually stop and write it down.
Well, listening to speak is what you're referring to, which is level 1 of listening to speak. And that is when you're listening to think about what you're gonna say next. We all do it. It's our default. It is.
Well, that's where I get screwed up on the show all the time because we'll be talking like I was doing earlier, and then you hear that point that I wanna make a point on, and then I keep listening and
There it goes.
I was talking about,
That's right, and there it goes.
right?
Yeah, and so just, I love writing things down, but I'm also a visual learner, and but whether it's a piece of paper or whether it's your iPad or whether you're typing on your computer, it doesn't matter. That's a demonstration that what they're saying is important as well as respectful.
I would caution having a computer open with the screen.
I'm not Yeah, I'm not fond of it because it's
Yeah,
separating
the
you.
barrier, yeah.
I love my good old iPad Pro that I have loaded on a program that I can take notes on my screen. That's just the way I do it. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One, in the world of real estate agents, I'm on the older end and I don't want anybody to think that I'm not tech savvy. So I always take something like that
Right.
to show that I'm okay. I'm good with tech. And so just thinking through those things that you're saying without saying them. But again, if you'll just stop and ask big open ended questions and then be quiet, wait for answers, write them down and go, don't jump at the answer because they'll say something and you won't go, oh, yeah. So we're going to be talking about that and we're going to do blah, 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 blah. And then you go off on a tangent into a different direction. Hold your comments, write it down, backtrack and say, this is what I heard. Y'all good. Yeah, you're good. Great. All right. This is what we're going to do based on this. We're going to talk about this, and this. You good for that? Yes. Okay. And then you're staying in control, number 1. And number 2, you're demonstrating leadership to the potential client that you know what you're doing and here is our flow. And sellers and buyers want to they want to trust you and feel confident in your abilities. And demonstrating that leadership is important and not going, oh, you want to do that? Sure, I'll do that. And that is not demonstrating leadership.
I'd contend that the first answers you get when you ask a question in any situation is the easy surface question for them. It's a safe answer. When they give that answer, you still stay quiet and you say, "What else?" Right? And you just keep,
Well,
yeah. So is that it?
tell me more.
Oh, yeah. I just keep
Tell me
trying to,
more.
yeah. The word "why" is helpful. Yeah, you can't keep saying "why,
Very.
why, why." You have to keep,
They get mad at you if you keep saying
yeah.
why, why, why.
You got to paint that up a little bit with some other words to get the same result.
Well, you and I, in our conversations, discussed the magic questions, right? That there's a series of magic questions that you can ask. There are always those ones that are thought provoking, and they're always the ones that people are not expecting you to ask, but they get down the surface. But you're absolutely right. People tell you what they think you want to hear first. And it's not the important things. So I would totally agree with you.
Yeah, that's right. The getting to those deeper conversations and being able to really understand them and let them know you understand them separates the agent from almost everybody else. They show that they're listening. They're gonna save everybody a lot of hassle if they open it up and go deep.
I have a mentor that always used to say they have to like you, trust you, and believe that you care about them more than the almighty dollar.
Right. That's
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah, that was 100%. That's what yeah.
And then, yeah, and that should be the goal of the agent. I know we're here to make money. We're doing this to earn. Yeah, if you don't do those other 2 things first,
You're in
you
it
know,
for sure. I agree. It's an interesting thing. A lot of agents believe everybody is their customer, and they're not. Not everybody is my jam, and I'm not their jam. And if I force it, we're all gonna be miserable the whole entire time. And you get to that by asking the questions and understanding if that's, you know, somebody that you'll want to work with.
right.
Because, Joe, I'm sure you know this, but if you get to the end of a transaction and you're exhausted mentally, emotionally, because you hate their guts,
Yeah.
it is awful. And not only is it bad emotionally and mentally for you, but you have been sucked dry of any ability to get other clients, right?
And it shows, and people can see that.
Yeah.
I know you talk about it, and I talk about it, alignment with agents and being themselves and to build a business, you're not forcing yourself into a box, somebody else's box and doing it their way. You gotta figure out who you are and what you need. The same thing goes for the client. We all there should be alignment with the client. And I don't mean the customer, I mean the client. The one you're signing, there needs to be alignment with them. Otherwise, it's gonna be miserable on both sides. And
I would really encourage people to figure out their perfect client. Who is that? Who are the ones that you've enjoyed working with the most? That kind of thing. So
yeah,
who are the people? And then you can get focused and you'll have plenty of business.
one of my guests on the show, Jennifer Kessel White, she built her entire business marketing. Everything she does not only resonates with her clients, it resonates with the people she wants to attract. So everything
Exactly.
is everything is intentional. And she studied it down, and now her partner brought in AI, so it's even amping up. Don't waste your time doing a shotgun approach to this business. Figure out what you want to focus on and just market to that.
It was really interesting when I finally got the memo that that's the way you did it. And I looked back at the people that I did not enjoy working with and the people I did. I discovered that I really like to work with single women and I really liked working with empty nester couples or professional couples with no children, that was kind of my place. And as a result, every Saturday, I went over to the Lynn Community Center and I did a home buyer seminar for single women.
Oh, wow. That's specific. That's great.
That specific. A lot of it is because I loved working with single women, and remember that I started in '93. I started in the real estate market in '93, and women were just starting to buy their own homes, and it was really cranking up as a segment of the population, and I totally identified with it because I bought my first home single, and I did that in the mid '80s, and, I look back on that process now where women did not buy houses in 1986 is when I bought my first house. And as a matter of fact, when I went to the attorney's office, every document I signed was my name, comma, spinster beside it. Yeah. And I asked the attorney, I said, what if I was a single man sitting here? And he said he would be putting unmarried person. I said, you've got to be kidding.
Wow.
Spinster was a legal term, but I thought of it as a derogatory term. So anyway, I just had that passion around that group. That was a big growing sector of the community, and I felt like I could educate them really well, and so that's what I did, and that was the majority of my business, is that what I went after.
One of the agents I was talking to yesterday did a bold way as well. He's very much a Christian,
Mhm.
and he has his brand name is built on some of the verses out of the Bible.
Right.
And on his front page of his newsletter and his website, he explains it. And he struggled over doing that, and then realized that if there are people that can't tolerate that or don't understand that being a Christian's a good thing, and this guy's he's the right Christian. He's a good guy,
Right.
and doing it for all the right reasons, then it's not somebody he wants to work with. So he's okay with getting rid of the people that don't wanna work with him.
There's plenty of
Uh-huh.
the A pie is not finite, really, it's not.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to be really careful not to go out there and decide that you wanna go after a segment that you don't understand.
Yes,
I have seen people do that. I've seen people go into segments they do not understand, they're not a part of,
that's right.
and they go after it because somewhere, somehow, they decided it was a good segment, whether they read it or
Right.
whatever happened.
And one of my the biggest illustrations of that is an agent who used to own a restaurant in an exclusive area, big money, billionaires, knew them all, served them. He's like, I'm going to get into I'm going to get their business. Didn't happen. There was no crossover. It wasn't.
Right.
He was their cook and their waiter and the guy that was to serve great food. Going from that to dealing with multi-million-dollar homes is a huge
That's
jump in that rapport. So you can't just step into it because you have like an idea or a tiny thread. It has to be the right relationships and you have to be in part of it.
and you've got to understand who they are and what their needs are.
Yeah,
It's that simple. But all of that always goes back to communication and how do you communicate your brand, how you communicate your value, how you continue once you if somebody buys your brand, you've communicated that well, then they have to see it all the way through
that-
the process. So if you have branded yourself, let's take the gentleman that you talked about, he branded himself on a Christian business and then he didn't demonstrate that all the way through, then he would be in trouble. It has to be a thread that goes through it all.
that's right. That's
Mm.
great.
So it always goes back to communication.
It does. Everything does. From marriages to every kind of relationship, every kind of business transaction, it's all communication.
Well, I'm not sure if I told you this in some of our conversations, but when I was a young agent, there was this agent in my office that he was very successful, and I deeply disliked him because I would hear him say derogatory things about his clients, which
Yeah.
I was like, "What are you doing?" Right? I just couldn't understand it. And so one night we, as an office, went out for a cocktail hour, and I've had just enough gin to say, "Hey, dude, I got a question. I don't understand how you're getting all these people and you don't really like them. You don't seem to really like them." And he turned around, looked at me. He said, "I'm a good communicator." And I said, "What?" He said, "I'm good at communication. I'm I, I'm just really good at this. They understand. I simplify everything I say to clients, so there's no misinformation. I follow up. I do all of those things." He said, "That's why my clients like me so much." And
That's
yes,
huge.
sometimes I don't like my client. And so I said, "Okay, so what should I do? I don't know how to do that." So he said, "Go join Toastmasters." That's what he told me,
Yeah.
right? And I
Good.
spent years in Toastmasters
Good for you.
trying to refine and to think and talk at the same time. That was my big thing, is to be able to think and talk at the same time.
Yeah, I love that program. It's
Me
great
too.
stuff. So, Joe, you've given us tons of nuggets, some great ideas. How do people get in touch with you? And why would they want to get in touch with you?
Sure. Thank you for both of those questions. Well, they would want to get in touch with me if they want coaching. Number one, I work one on one with agents and with real estate leaders. That's my niche. And I make sure that we're very compatible. I don't want to waste my time and I don't want anybody else to waste their time. But if you're at that place, particularly where you have been stuck and you haven't been able to break through the next spot, I do a business analysis on you. It becomes very apparent very quickly why you're stuck, and then we work on the plan to move you forward to that next place. Then the other thing is I have lots of courses, CE courses and regular skill-based courses out on the internet, and all of my courses are very pragmatic. You're going to walk away with something that makes your business better. Even
Great.
CE courses, you make your business
Yeah, you
better.
have a nice approach to your CE, so great.
Thank you. And jomangum.com is where you can get in touch with me.
Okay, fantastic.
Mhm.
All right, so Joe, the last question. You know so much about real estate. You've come a long way. You've seen all kinds of markets and trends and tactics. What would you tell that newbie Joe who just got her license that you would want her to know?
Yeah, I just got flashed back to my first year in real estate. And in my first year of real estate, we were sitting at about 9.5% interest rates. And we had just come down from 12, 13% interest rates. And there was news coming out everywhere that said they're going back up. And so everybody was in a complete tizzy. And so the thing I want agents to know, and this is a long-term agent thing, is markets are swinging. Markets come, and there is always, always a sweet spot in a market, even the worst market there is. If you will just go hunting for it, you will not just survive, you will thrive. Winston Churchill had and I'm paraphrasing a quote from him, but it was never waste a good crisis because all the rest of the agents are going to be sitting around in panic
Right.
mode. There's always a sweet spot. Go change your business model and get it. Don't let yourself wallow in, "Oh, no, the sky is falling." Go get ahead and figure it out. That would be my
That is fantastic advice. We'll leave it there.
particularly now.
Subscribe to our show. What's that?
I said particularly now with markets
Yeah,
being
it's always relevant. Every market, like you said.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, so hit subscribe. Stay tuned. We always have wonderful guests just like Joe. Be your best. Have fun.